and praise music. Stay true, don't be feels like flavors. Beam on the chopper like a lightsaber. Feel like a Jedi, power and Darth Vader. Shot, getting you double like Bar Raiders. Cutting off haters, trading no more favors. They want to get with it, you make it with sign waivers. I don't make track rap, this is that we get cat rap. Do it for the niggas, my bird up in their backpack. Tired of the project, feeling just like a lab rat. Second from the Pyrex, from the room with the cash at. Looking past that, who's telling you what I'm mad at? Remember, you can steal them things, citing the glad rap. So my demographic is so sad, had a traffic. People in the package, dreams up in the lavish. No family, no team, but had to manage. We get them off the streets and get the niggas established. Getting back to business and getting rid of you faggots. No homo, or your rider come over polo. Cause we out here battling dragons for Nakamoto. The type of joke every garden while others snapping photos. The demons that would take by Martin up in the coffin. Coming for my portion, so take it over with caution. I don't get into semantics, I'm going rampant. Reverse the trick by the hand, God and 10 commandments. These booty bandits in the panic, and they acting frantic. The world's tired of that GMO, they all organic. A wild rapper to the best situation practice. This ain't engaging like you ain't from another planet. I'm on satanic, always flashing, you don't want no static. We're so much stronger for the city like that Atlantic. Psychosomatic dynamic, but from another fabric. The Lord's bringing justice, vengeance for like Hispanics. Psychosomatic, satanic, and all the ways he tactics. 400 years ago, countries is crossing the Atlantic. Systematic practice, God's soul, his battles, the killer song. And extra, please excuse me, I'm a man. Fuck America, it's take a rock like madness. They wanna act like I'm the Baptist, white America, being afraid of the blackness, I'm trackless, that's on the FBI blacklist. I'm attacking out the world on the taxes, trying to speak on me and I'm flipping over the mattress. I can sing flow, yo, I skip practice, typical bitch tendencies, nigga, you an actress. Niggas is safe to say for rappers. Everything I take it over by practice, culture beats, I tell the demons how Dracula. They trying to put it back like a spectacular vernacular. Rhymes that are lavender. Some of the MCs can't contain no stamina. They only get it full of cheese like the lab rat. These niggas been ducks. Black smoke so sick, I was supposed to with an ass mask. Spit that raw hardcore, you scared of the backlash. Wanna claim on me, you can crank like the NASDAQ. People royalty and we about them like ASCAP. Like you trash that, matter of fact, you can ask that. Right? We're independent taking over, we don't rock with you. So they want a nigga taking out like the apocrypha. Don't think I won't hit you cause I'm popular. Kyle Woman ready for war, and so is Officer. Jesus Christ, have it over, nigga! Yeah, I'm just playing. Yeah. I'm tired of living here like a slave. I'm rappers without a promise and talent. Been getting big, I make a beat. Disbelief in the state of the game. It's like you gotta be an half a faggot just to get paid, and that's so. But this is Lost Tribes, nigga, so remember the name. These rappers buried alive like Undertaker and Kane. And I'm coming back just to cremate to remain. So if you can't take the heat, then step back from the flame. You got a lot more to lose, man. It's up in the game. Cause I was top a nigga out like he ain't fit in the frame. You think you fly, I'm not getting heads out the sky like a plane. That's on the way to my laser. Showing no mercy like a cop with a taser. Truck when I talk like my song is a razor. Lyrical gladiator. Rap assassinator. Verbal manipulator. When someone told these niggas they get to their head, and not the only ones who made it, it's the niggas on that fake shit. And I ain't singing the bitches and all the great shit. The illest nigga you know when they get without a bracelet. It's like being the only nigga who's walking inside the matrix. It's the art of rap and the rules of the nature. The game needs change and I'm here to rearrange it. If I want to take it back to the basics. Shit they think I so cocaine. Think those these niggas be training your mind slaves. Mistakes. I'm here to make an agreement. So try to focus your brain. My kill switches engage with these facts are entertaining. I'll be playing at the most I learn practice at the game. And this is loud from the judges. The rap hip hop basic. Until the time I must have come a murder from the demon and then leave a hole you no apologies. Coming from rapper salaries. My team rush shit like we out here burning calories. Bringing city and I lie, you say apologies. But it's cause the flow out this world touching the galaxy. Niggas rapping like girls, they ain't follow my policy. I was raised in the era, we had the rap reality. Had to really live this shit with my mentality. Now the game flooded with fakes, and they crowded me. Better not cross that line and watch your boundaries. We can't soul, but rapping is like a hobby. Bodies and forms with me, roll the dice, so you mind me. Rappers say they own their job, but not hardy. Cause you ain't got no job, man, you like Tommy. I know cats let that fall ring like Audi. And leave your head all wrapped up like a Saudi. But I ain't never been no killer, no armed robbery. I just like to move downstairs like Monopoly. Now I smoke no more, no, they were broccoli. I don't even push no pills, I was prophecy. Respect is aristocracy, giving rappers a lot of me. When I'm spitting, I hear the niggas getting their glossary. Check the wordplay, realizing they were stopping me. Your only option when I'm round nine, acknowledge me. You have experience where you plan out a whole lifetime with somebody and their life can take too soon. So now that story you planned out in your head feel like now it's missing pages. Look, real lyrics that you never ever spoke. Remember at the times we had to use before. Way back, it hurt me back that you was 21 years old. Wasn't no savage, it seemed like it's a joke. So I still talk about you as if you was never gone. The man in that box has got to be your clone. One shot to the niggas gone tonight. My niggas gone to shots to help me cope inside. About to explode. Missing pace got me missing out on hope. Missing payments and your niggas stay broke. I'm missing my niggas turn into a ghost. Now they can't raise the toast, but for them we pour a dose. When you really close is when it really hurt the most. And when you really love someone, it's hard to let them go. You left me with 2 seasons, now she gotta grow on both. And now she got some missing pages to your story, never wrote. Cause your weed still won't do you no good, no matter how good. This a family I wrote. I just wish my God broke and show his face. This is a story y'all wrote. It is missing pages. Cause your weed still won't do you no good, no matter how good. Said it's a family I wrote. I just wish all my focus show their face. This is a story y'all wrote. I'm just missing pages. In this day and age, it is missing pages. Like, can't leave the house without it's missing pages on your shoulder. Got to stay on your P's and Q's. I said it's missing pages. 10 toes down. All the way. But look, I wonder if it feel nice when you grip tight on a 40 cal Smith and Wesson at the midnight. Pointed to a nigga head, any nigga on sight. And when I put it on sight, to pull the trigger, kill another nigga, another black statistic. Now he's another victim. Kids and his mother miss him. His story never finished. This is just another sentence. Judge off of life and now you missing. Missing pace got me missing. I don't know. Missing payments and y'all niggas stay broke. I'm missing my niggas turn into a ghost. Now they can't raise a toast, but for them we pour more. When you really close is when it really hurt the most. And when you really love someone, it's hard to let them go. You took another person like that you ain't even know it. Now that person missing pages cause I hope. Cause your reach won't do you no good, no matter how good. This is family I feel. I just wish my God broke and show his face. This is a story y'all wrote, and it's missing page. Cause your reach won't do you no good, no matter how good. So this is family I flow. I just wish my focus show their face. This is a story y'all wrote, and it's missing page. Cause your reach won't do you no good, no matter how good. This is family I feel. I just wish my God broke and show his face. This is a story y'all wrote, and it's missing page. Cause your reach won't do you no good, no matter how good. So this is family I flow. I just wish my focus show their face. This is a story y'all wrote, and it's missing page. You got cops killing niggas. And it's missing page. Regular white folk killing niggas. Cause your reach won't do you no good. Man, niggas killing niggas, you feel? I don't make no sense. This is a story y'all wrote, and it's missing page. I'm looking the same nigga. Equals me till over a block. Hey, Shalom Israel, Yahweh Shemar Shepard Thumb to the brothers, and Yahweh Shemar all of them by Shemar Shah to the sisters, the nation of Israel. This is the ICBK on the Commander Hana. We are currently now live for the ICBK Chicago Lashawan Qadash class, and we're gonna go ahead and dive into it. You understand? So let me go ahead and move the camera on over here towards where I am, so I can maybe show you exactly for what everyone needs to know about learning about the Hebrew. You understand? Because the Hebrew is a language that pertains towards the Israelites, according to the Bible, who are considered to be today's so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and North American Indians. All right. So bear with me for a moment as I adjust the camera. Meantime, if anybody online has any questions, comments, or concerns pertaining towards the class, now's the time to ask y'all questions. All right. All right. So as you see right up here on the board, it says Lashawan Qadash. It is translated as Holy Tongue. All right. That is the language in which we speak as Israelites. That is what the Most High speaks. That is the language that Christ preferred to spoke when he came to Saul. To better go ahead and set them on the mission, better gather the Israelites that were scattered in the different nations. So when we read that in the New Testament, all right. Adam spoke Hebrew. He spoke the Lashawan Qadash. His sons and his great grandsons, all the way down towards Abraham, also spoke the language, and even Isaac and Jacob as well. You understand? So this right here is the ancient Hebrew dialect, or the letters in which you see right here. A lot of people may also like to call it the Phoenician or the Paleo-Hebrew. It's still the same nonetheless, all right? And then down here at the bottom, you have the Assyrian Hebrew, as to where when we was underneath the Babylonian / Assyrian captivity, we preserved the ancient Hebrew by by changing the dialect, all right? So I also had this online on the screen, as you see right here. If you'd like to copy this, I'm going to send it to you over the class feed. Shalom, Lord Christ, on over the class feed. So I'm going to go ahead and break down this chart right now. So as there about being 22 letters in the alphabet, I'm going to go ahead and pronounce it, each and every letter by itself. So as far as for the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet, we have A, then Ba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa, Za, Cha, Ta, Ya, Ka, La, Ma, Na, Sa, I, Pa, Taza, Kwa, Ra, Sha, and Tha. All right. So notice that you didn't see no U, no E up here, no O. This isn't the O. This is the letter I. You understand? Notice I pronounced this I and not O. All right. It looks like an O. Why? Because when we look at the English language today, in this modern Western European society, a lot of letters that they have in the alphabet language today in English, they got it from the Hebrew. That's why this looks like an O. That's why that looks like a W. That looks like an X on the end, an L. You understand? A Z, a Y. You understand? Why do you think all these other races of people copy after our culture? Because we are a race of people whom God has given the world's first language to. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go back over towards the book at hand, in which we was going over on last week's class. You understand? So bear with me as I share the screen. Bear with me for a moment. All right, there we go. Okay, so this is the book in which you're reading right here, right now. This is actually biblical Hebrew and introductory grammar. If you happen to have this book, we will actually be on page 47. You understand? So we will actually be page on 47 in the actual book. The online book here says page 50. We on now lesson 7. You understand? This right here is, of course, the number on the Roman numerals. So this here is number 7, lesson 7. And this is exactly what we're going to be diving into today's class. All right, so just bear with me for a moment, just so I can make sure that everybody online actually sees what you're saying on the screen right now. All right. All right, so as you see right here on the screen, it says lesson 7. It says noun derivations. We're going to be diving into nouns and verbs, and we're gonna be going over the difference between the two. All right. So it says according to their origin or derivation, Hebrew nouns may be divided into 3 classes. All right. Primitive nouns are those for which no known derivation exists. The number of such nouns is very small. All right. So of course in the Hebrew, when it comes down towards nouns in the Hebrew, the majority of those words will be very small in comparison towards much other bigger words. Here are just a few examples of those words right here. We have Abba, which is father, which is a two-letter word. We have Amma, which is mother, which is a 2-letter word. Blood, which is pronounced as Dam. We also have day in the Hebrew, which is pronounced as Yawam, a 3-letter word. Night, we have Layala, which is a 4-letter word. We have mouth, which is pronounced as Pa. We have son, which is Ban, 2-letter word. We have Yad, which is a 2-letter word. And last but not least, we have Shum, which is a 2-letter word. All right, so when it comes down towards words in the Hebrew in the Lashawan Qadash, the nouns is always going to be very small as far as for the number of letters that's in that word. All right, so it says the vast majority of Hebrew nouns are derived from verbs. I'm gonna read that again. It says the vast majority of Hebrew nouns are derived from verbs. All right, so it says for our first word here, it says the bar. All right, so the bar as a noun means word, and it comes from the bar as its verb. He spoke. All right, so the whole entire point of this is that when you come across words in the Hebrew, it's not always going to mean the same thing every time you see it. You understand? You got nouns, you got verbs. You can have a word, and if in the scripture or if in the passage in which you're reading, if it could be a verb, it could mean different from a noun. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you on the board exactly what I mean. All right. All right, so nouns and verbs are actually different. So I'm going to go ahead and go over a few examples in which is actually in the book as I write up in the board so you can be able to see the difference. All right. All right. So the first word that was in the book was the bar. So I'm going to write that out. All right. So we got the bar right here. Now the bar as a verb would mean he spoke. All right. Because you got to remember what a verb is. It's an action word. All right. And the bar as a noun means word. All right. So a lot of times in the scripture where it will say the word of God, when you look at word in the Hebrew, it means the bar. When a lot of cases when you read Lashawan Qadash as well, when a sentence first kick off by saying Waya Mar or Waya Mar and also Waya what's the other one? It's losing me right now, but when it says Waya Mar, that means and he said or and he spoke. All right. So it's like and he said when it says Waya Dabar,
That's what I was looking for. When it says William depart, that means and he spoke. There we go. All right. So as a noun, it means word, and as a verb, it means spoke. I'm going to show you another example with another word. This here is going to be Zerai. All right, so we got the word Zerai in the Hebrew. So Zerai as a verb would mean he sowed. Anytime we're dealing with verbs, to where you come to where it's coming from a Hebrew, to where it's coming from a Hebrew word, it's also going to be he, and then whatever that word says. So he would be the masculine version of that verb coming from the Hebrew. All right. So now, as a noun, what Zerai would mean is that it would mean seed. All right. And notice how closely related the words are, even though they differ from its meaning, from noun and verb. All right. You can't spoke or say anything unless its words come out of your mouth. You can't sow anything unless you have a seed to sow it with. All right. So you can be able to see how these verbs is coming out of these nouns, exactly what it said in the book. All right. So I'm going to do another word. All right. So the next word now is malak in the Hebrew. All right. So malak means he reigned or he ruled, because you got to remember verbs are action words. All right. It takes an action in order for it to be a verb. All right. And malak as a noun means king. All right. All right. So you can't rule anything unless you have a certain position of power. You see how the word malak as a verb means he ruled comes out of the word king. All right. Just like soul, seed, spoke, word. All right. So I'm going to do the last one here. This one here is going to be coming from Ibad. All right. So we have Ibad. Ibad in the Hebrew, it's if it's a verb, it would mean he served. All right. So that's exactly what it would mean. It would mean he served in Hebrew. As a noun, it would mean servant. All right. For those of you who forgot what a noun is, a noun is a person, place, or thing. So a person can be a servant, a person can be a king, and a thing can be a seed. You understand? A thing can be a word. That's what nouns are: a person, place, a thing, and a verb is an action word. So this is just the difference between the both nouns and verbs, and how even also in the book in which you read it, how nouns are actually very small words with few letters. All right, so I'm gonna leave that example up on the board just so you can take a look at it and write it on down for just a brief moment before I carry on out with this book. All right. So it says the vast majority of Hebrew nouns are derived from verbs. I show y'all a few of those examples up there on the board. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll on down now. This is going to be 7.3. That's 7.3 of this book. It says a few Hebrew nouns are derived from other nouns. All right, I'm going to read that again. A few Hebrew nouns are derived from other nouns. The very first word in Genesis falls within this category. It is within the word Ra'ash Yaf, which means beginning in the Hebrew, or the noun Ra'ash Head, which means head. All right. Other examples include the following. All right. So you also have nouns that also derives from the root word of those particular nouns as well. All right. I'm going to show you an example of how to break this on down. All right. So I'm just going to read this again before I hit the board. It says a few Hebrew nouns that derive from other nouns. The very first word in Genesis falls in this category. It is the word Ra'ashiyah, which means beginning, from the noun Ra'ash, which means head. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit up the board and show you some examples of these. All right, so a few Hebrew nouns that derive from other nouns. So I'm going to break down Genesis really quick and show you exactly what it was saying in the book. So Genesis in Hebrew means Bara'ashiyah, but I'm not going to put the Bara'ash. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. All right, so with Genesis in the Hebrew, it is pronounced as Ba, Ra, Ash, Yah. Ba, Ra, Ash, Yah. The Ba is by itself, the Ra is by itself, the Ah and the Shah connected, and the Yah and the Tha connected. Now, the reason why I'm saying that I'm not going to include the Ba in Genesis is because Ba here is a preposition. All right. All right, which allows us to better have this whole entire rest of the word to be the root word, which is originally Ra'ashiyah, which just means beginning. All right, hope you understand. All right, so Ba is just a preposition, Ra'ashiyah is a root word. All right, and for those of you who may not know what prepositions are just letters from off of the Lashawan Qadash chart that would be either a suffix or a prefix to where the letter would fall at the very beginning of a word or at the very ending. To add much more of a more implied meaning in my using the root word. So instead of saying beginning, if I want to say the beginning, then I would say ha ra'ash yaf, and by putting a ha. If I want to say um, in the beginning, then I would just have the ba right there in the front. All right. So if you would like to know exactly a little bit more in detail about where prepositions comes from, I wouldn't mind sharing that online with y'all. But for now, Ra'ash Yaf is what we're going to be paying attention to, beginning. And Ra'ash also comes from out of the word and noun, which is actually, I'm pull it up right now, bear with me, which is Ra'ash. All right, so it comes from Ra'ash. All right. It's like I forgot the ra, which means head. All right. All right. So bara ashiaf is what you would see in the Hebrew, which means in the beginning. But when you cancel this out, the ba, and when you're left with ra'ash yaf, it comes from the root word ra'ash, which means head, which is the noun here. All right, so that's what it means in the book where it says the few Hebrew nouns are derived from other nouns. So ra'ash yaf comes from ra'ash, out of this word here, which means head. All right, so that's just one example. I'm going to leave this up in the board for a brief second, just so you can make a copy of that information on down. And now I'm going to go ahead and show you a few more examples. And the next few examples is what's going to make all the sense in the world as far as like how nouns are derived from other nouns. All right. So as far as this word here coming up now, we have bawal kor in the Hebrew. Ba wa hor. All right. All right, so we have Bakor, which means a herdsman, and it comes from the noun Bakor, which is the root word here. All right, comes from the root of Bakor, which means a herd. All right, so you can be able to see how bigger nouns actually derives from smaller nouns, which is actually a noun that is actually the root of this noun here. All right, so I'm gonna write up another one. All right, so now we have a vine dresser. That is what karam means in the Hebrew. It means a vine dresser. And it comes from its word in which it really means as karam. All right, so a lot of times when you would see this, when you do research behind the word in the Hebrew, when you're trying to find its root word, sometimes its root word will just be the word just as it is. All right. And I'm going to show you some examples of those right now, so bear with me. So as you see where I write on the board, it says karam in the Hebrew. Let me actually spell that on out. That is Karam. All right. All right. So as you see right there on the board, this is a vine dresser, which is in the Hebrew pronounced as karam, and it comes from the root in which the root word, which is karam, which means a vineyard. All right. So as I bring your attention on over here right now, I'm going to go to the Blue Letter Bible. I'm going to pick any scripture. I'm just going to pick, for example, Genesis. And I'm going to pick the very first scripture which I see. All right, so I'm going to click on Tools, and then I'm going to click on In the Lear. Then as it brings it up for me in the Hebrew, let me get rid of these dial points here. All right, so you can better see how for smaller words, this word is actually just what it is. For example, we have bara'ah. Bara'ah in Hebrew means created. You understand? It doesn't come from the root word, but for bigger words, you will see how it's broken down to where it has the root word directly underneath it. For example, where it says the heaven. The heaven in Hebrew is pronounced as Hashemayim, but its root word is Shemayim, which means heaven. All right, so you can really see that. All right, so the smaller words, the root word would just be by itself. That's why when we read in the book, as I bring it back on up here for you, it says that primitive nouns are those that have, it's like it says, let me scroll on down. It says primitive nouns are those for which had no derivation exists. The number of such nouns is very small. All right. And the thing about these nouns is that the amount of letters that's in the word necessarily doesn't have a root word. It just is its own root word by itself. All right. But for bigger words in which you see for Hashemayim, the heaven, and even down here at the bottom where it says the earth, Rataza, you can see the root word of Rataza, which is Rataza, which just means land or earth. All right, so that was just a little clarification for you, as you have seen up in the board, considering why is this own root word. So I just brought that on down for you. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and write out the rest up on the board. All right, so now we have Yasha Aliyah. All right, everybody heard Yasha Allah. Everyone knows Yasha Allah is Israel, but how do you say Israelite? Like I am an Israelite in Hebrew. That would be Anya Asha Aliyah in the Hebrew. All right. All right, so that's pronounced as Yah Shah second. Yah Shah Allah Yah. Yasha Allah Yah. All right. And that means in the Hebrew Israelite. And it comes from is a root word, and it doesn't have a root word because it's a very big word in general. And it comes from the root word Israel. All right. All right, so Yasha Aliyah means Israelite, and its root word is Yasha Allah, which means Israel. All right. All right, so now we're going to go on down towards the last one at the bottom. This one here is going to be Egyptian in the Hebrew. All right, and this is pronounced as Matazaria. It means Egyptian, and it comes from its root word, or what Egypt would mean in the Hebrew. All right, which comes from Matazaria. All right. All right, so and the term Egyptian comes from the root word Matazaria, which means Egypt, just like the same way in which Israelite comes from the root word Yasha'Allah, which means Israel. All right. And yes, sometimes for words that derives from a noun of its root word, sometimes it may be bigger. You understand, based on how many letters is actually in the root word. All right, so it all dates back towards its origin as well, because the term before the term Egyptian even exists, before the people existed. I mean, it's like before the land existed, the people existed. All right, so when you have Israelite, Egyptian, what else? You also have the Amalekites, the Perizzites, the Hivites. When you have the nations of people, to where it would say Amalekite or an Egyptian. And when you look at those words in the Hebrew, and when you find its root word where it comes from, it will come from a nation. You understand? This is like how you see Egypt and Israel. All right. So for vine dresser, we have Karam, and up top for Herdmans, its root word comes from Bakor. All right, which means a herd. All right. All right. So in this book, as I scroll on back down, it says a few Hebrew nouns that are derived from other nouns. That's exactly what we just went over on the board. All right. So now when it comes down to with nouns as well, there are things that's very beneficial for everybody to know in learning the Hebrew. Is that with nouns, you have different classes of how you better see and reading the scripture that help you understand and knowing its context. This is one of them. All right. So nouns, gender, Hebrew nouns are either masculine or feminine. All right. So when it comes down to those words in general in the Hebrew, it could be either a masculine noun or a feminine noun. I'm going to show you exactly how that is. All right. The only absolute way to determine the gender of a noun is to look it up in a dictionary. Masculine nouns are the most difficult to identify since they do not follow any set pattern. All right. So I'm going to show you exactly that right now. All right. So this is a little bit of the Bible. I'm just going to click on. I'm going to click on heaven. All right. I'm going to click on Strong's H8064. You understand? It says Strong's right here. So I'm going to scroll down. Click on Strong's 8064. You're going to see what gender is heaven in the Hebrew. All right. So you see where it says masculine noun. That's exactly what kind of noun that is. It's a masculine word. All right. Shemayim. All right. So I can easily go back and click on another word. I can click on Earth. I'm going to click on Strong's H776. I'm going to click on that. And then for earth or land in the Hebrew, which is pronounced as aratazah, that is a feminine noun. That's a feminine word. All right. And the reason why it's important to know which words are feminine, which ones are masculine, is because when you say the salute towards a brother or sister, if you're saying the wrong kind of a thought, then you'll be in a messed up position as far as for saying you in the Hebrew, or even as far as for saying you in Hebrew. All right, because it's written out differently than the other. All right. All right. So for example, for saying you, actually let me get rid of this. All right, so as far as the saying you in the Hebrew, that would be a the. This would be the masculine version of saying you. All right. Both of these letters are singular. All right. Now, the feminine version of saying you would be with the ha at the end. A lot of words that have the ha at the end of a word, 9 times out of 10, that word is always feminine. All right. All right. So that ha will have much more of an emphasis at the end when you're saying you towards a sister. All right. So when you're saying a salute towards somebody, when you're saying, for example, Yahweh Bashim Yahshua Barak Atah, you want to put the ha emphasis at the end of a thought because that would be for the feminine salute. All right. So if you happen to say the feminine salute, the female salute or the woman salute, whatever the case, when you say Shalom Yahweh Shamar Al Atah, you understand that thought, the ha at the end, you put more emphasis in it. That's the feminine version of the noun you. All right, with the ha at the end. So that's real good for you to know. All right. And also as well, anytime we have ha at the end of a word in Hebrew, almost every time that word is just going to be feminine. All right. All right. I'm going to read this on out. It says masculine nouns are the most difficult to identify since they do not follow any set pattern. Feminine nouns are somewhat easier to identify. The following guidelines will provide assistance in this task. Nouns referring to female persons or animals will be feminine. And some examples are here. We have a ma in the Hebrew, which is a feminine word. You see the F in parentheses, which lets you know that that is a feminine word. Because as well, even when you want to name your children, um, um, even when you want to name your children, you want to look up and know whether or not if that word is masculine or feminine. You could easily have a hardcore name, you understand, but when you look up its origin, that's actually a feminine word. You understand, based on the context in which it may be used in the scriptures. You understand? So you could name your son Rakan Mawak, some masculine name. You understand? But that name actually could be feminine if you actually don't go behind the meaning of that word and know whether or not if it's feminine or masculine. All right. So some of these words right here is actually showing you right now that some of these words are actually feminine. We have a ma, which is mother. You can see here we have baf, which is daughter in Hebrew, which is a feminine word. I'm going to read on down. It says nouns ending in ha will normally be feminine in gender, which is what I just said earlier. All right. So when you look at a lot of these words right here with the ha at the end, they're all feminine. All right. It says a few nouns are made feminine by the addition of ha to the masculine form of the noun. All right. So I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by that. I mean, exactly what they mean by that, and it's very simple. All right. So it says a few nouns are made feminine by the addition of ha to the masculine form of the noun. All right. So let's go ahead and get to it. right. So as you see right here, it says some masculine nouns can be made feminine by adding "huh" at the end of the word. All right. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So the first word here we have king. And king as a noun is pronounced as malak. All right. So this is and then as well, I'm going to put M in parentheses. Just let you know that that's masculine because all the words on the left hand side are going to be masculine. All the words on the left, all the words on the right are going to be feminine. All right. All right. So now notice that I put the "huh" at the end, and now this word is here is now feminine. All right. Just by simply by adding one letter at the end of a word, it changes this from masculine to feminine. All right. So instead of this word here, which in the Hebrew means malak, now it is pronounced as malakah, which means queen in Hebrew. All right. So now the next word here is going to be prophet. And prophet in Hebrew is pronounced as Naba Ya'ah, Naba Ya'ah. All right. Which means prophet. And when you add a "huh" at the end of that, then it changes it from prophet to prophetess. All right. All right. So now it will be pronounced Naba Ya All right. The and the huh connect at the end. All right. So this here is feminine. This word right here is actually masculine as well. All right. So now we're gonna have the next word, which would be lad or boy in the Hebrew. And that is actually pronounced as Na'ar. All right. Sorry, not Na'ar, my mistake. Na'ira. There we go. And this here is actually feminine. So when I add the it's actually masculine. I'm sorry. So when I add the "huh" at the end of on the "ira," then it's going to be feminine. All right, to where it's going to be maiden. All right, it means nothing but just a young lady. And when they add the ha at the end, you're going to see the difference in its pronunciation. All right. All right. So you see the difference in the ayin ra and with the ha at the end is you're going to have to put the more of an emphasis on the ha. Now that's connected to the ra. So you pronounce as na'ai ra. All right. So these are just a few examples right here. Actually, I have a few more I need to put up on the board so you can be able to see how when you add ha onto a masculine noun, now that noun becomes feminine, and it becomes the exact opposite of what it will mean in its masculine form. All right. So prophet is a man, prophetess is a woman, king is a man, queen is a woman. The boy is a boy, and a maiden is a girl. All right. So you can be able to see the difference when you add her at the end of a word, it becomes feminine. All right. All right. So now the next word is going to be horse in the Hebrew. This is a masculine word, a masculine noun. And this is actually pronounced as sawas in the Hebrew. Sawas. That's what horse mean in the Lashawan Qadash. And when I add the hut at the end, it changes it from horse, which is a masculine word, towards mare. All right, which is a female horse. All right. And this here is going to be feminine. All right, so now it's pronounced as sawasa. All right, which means mare. When we add the ha at the end of sawas. All right. So now, last but not least, the last word we have prince, which is a masculine or masculine noun, and it means shar. All right, in the Hebrew, that's what shar means. It means prince, and when you add a ha at the end, it changes it from prince to princess. All right. And that's what Sharad means in the Hebrew. All right. Shara, which means princess, and that is a feminine noun. All right, which derives from prince. All right. The scripture where it says in um the scripture where it says in the book of Genesis, how the Lord took um Slakia. Let me try and find the scripture. Bear with me for a moment. The scripture where it says of how the Lord um, brought forth woman out of man. You understand? You can better see how feminine words are coming out of the masculine version of the nouns. All right, that's the point that I was trying to bring on now. All right, so princess, the word princess, which is Shara, the Hebrews come out of the masculine word which is Shar. All right. Mare, which is a female horse, which is pronounced as Sawasa, comes out of the masculine word Sawaz. All right, which is original, um, call stem of the word in which you're looking at. All right, and even as far as the Shar, a lot of people may not know this. When you break down Israel, I'll break Israel on down really fast right now. All right, so Israel in the Hebrew is pronounced as Yasha'Allah. All right, the Yah is he, Shar is prince, Allah is power. All right, so when you breaking the term Israel on down, as far as us being Israelites, and as I stated earlier, and what I had up on the board earlier on in the class, as far as for the term Israelite, what it means Yasha Aliyah. All right, the Yah is the he, Shar is the prince, Allah is the power. He is the prince of the power. That is what Israel means in the Hebrew. All right, so just in case if a lot of y'all online watching the class may not happen to know this. This is something good to know as far as for knowing the breakdown of where we come from and what Israel means. All right, but nonetheless, as far as these masculine nouns and how they be made feminine, something about adding the "ha" at the end, in which we did with the last two. All right, so I'm gonna keep this on information on the board for just a brief moment. Then we're gonna dive back into the book and bring some more information on now. All right. All right, so we went over these examples. Still in lesson 7 right now. We went over these nouns how they can be made feminine by just simply adding the "ha" to the masculine form of the noun. All right, so I'm just going down. It says nouns ending in "ha" would normally, ordinarily be feminine, which is true. All right, and even with the even words with "waf" at the end, even words with the "tha" at the end, sometimes will be feminine as well. Actually, that is exactly what that is. It's a thought. All right, now any thought would normally be feminine as well. All right, so we have waf, which is sister. It's like an aqua, which is sister. We have a moth, which is truth, and truth is not a masculine. It's not a masculine noun. That's a feminine word. All right, you even have door, which is also a feminine word, which is pronounced as the lot. All right, you even have you even have covenant, which is also a feminine word, which is pronounced as barayah in the Hebrew. All right, we even also have kingdom. Kingdom may sound like a masculine word, but it's actually feminine, which is pronounced as malakwaf. It's like a malakwaf, malakawaf. All right, malakawaf is a feminine word, which means kingdom in the Hebrew. All right. So always remember that when it comes down to those words I have, where was it? Let me scroll them down. Words I have the "ha" at the end, which you see right here. All right. Words that have the "ha" at the end of an it's like words that have the letter "ha" at the end of a word that's a noun. That word is also be feminine. And even words that have the "tha" at the end of it, and if it's a noun, it will be feminine as well. Which you see right here on the screen. All right. Aqua, which is sister, that's a feminine noun. Time, which is Aitha, that's a feminine noun. Bow, which is pronounced as Kwashaf, that's a feminine noun. All right, so when you have letters with "tha" and "ha" at the end, it's also be feminine. So always remember that. All right. Nouns that refer to parts of the body that exist in pairs will usually be feminine. All right. So any pairs of your body, hands, feet, eyes, and when you look up those words in the Hebrew, those words will always be feminine. That's what this is saying. All right. So that'll be yad, which is a feminine word, which means hand. You got ayan, which is a feminine word, which means eye. You even also have another feminine word, which is regal, all right, which means foot. All right, so now we're done with gender. Now we're about to move into numbers. All right, so it says nouns, number. There are three categories of number to be considered in connection with Hebrew nouns. They are singular, plural, and dual. All right. Both singular nouns are not identifiable by the endings, as can be seen from the examples cited earlier on the discussion of gender. Plural nouns have special endings that generally correspond to their gender. Unfortunately, plurals are not formed simply by adding special additions to the singular forms, but singular forms themselves often undergo changes when plural endings are added. These changes may seem arbitrary to the beginning student, but they will become easier to understand. Let's scroll them down. All right. So now we're dealing into making words plural in the Hebrew, which is very simple. All right. And all you do is just add the yum at the end. You have the yum at the end of a word, which you see right here. All right. So I'm going to show you example. I'm going to show you on these examples up on the board right now. All right, so you see up in the board it says nouns can be made plural by adding the yum at the end. And based off the information off of the book, that would be the information in which I would be writing up on the board. So we have our singular nouns here on the left. And then we're going to have our plural nouns over here on the right. All right, so we're going to use the same word in which I just had up in the board earlier, which is horse in the Hebrew, which is actually pronounced as sawas. All right. Now we want to go ahead and make a plural. Instead of saying horse, towards horses with an S at the end, because there's a such thing as an S at the end in the Hebrew. That is what the yum is for. All right. All right, so now it'll be pronounced as sawasyum. All right. And then I'm going to underline where the yum is located at. Now the next word here is going to be tree, which is also a noun. And tree in the Hebrew is pronounced as aitaza. All right. So now if I want to say trees instead of tree, I would add the yum at the end. to where now it would become as I to the young. All right. Now for mountain. Mountain in Hebrew is pronounced as Hara. Now, if I want to say mountains with an S at the end of that particular noun, all what I would need to do is add a yum at the end of that noun. All right. All right. So now instead of hara, now it will be changed to harayum in the Hebrew. And now for this last word, which is word in the Hebrew. Word in the Hebrew is pronounced as the bar. Now, if I want to change it from word to words with an S at the end, then all what I need to do is add a yum at the end of the bar in the Hebrew. All right, and there we have it. All right, so as far as all of these here, all you're doing is just adding your yum at the end of the noun. That's how you make it plural. All right, this is how you get your S at the end of the words. All right. All right, so that's how you get that's how you get your words plural for the S at the end. Now for the ing at the end of a word, that would be mainly more for verbs. You understand? Because you got to remember what a verb is. It's an action word. If you happen to say I am working, the ing at the end that only applies towards verbs, not nouns. You can't say horsing. You cannot say treeing. You can't say mounting. You understand? That would be incorrect grammar. That's where when you add the yes at the end, that's where the ing. That's where the young will come into place. All right. So now I'm going to leave this information on the board. Now I'm going to come on back and then show you how to add the so-called ing, which would be the wa that will be incorporated into those particular verbs in the Hebrew. All right. Okay, so we just went over massive plural endings and by just simply by adding the yum at the end. I'm going to scroll on down. This is now saying a few massive nouns have plurals that end in waf is normally used for feminine plurals. All right, and that's also another good thing to know as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this on up here on the board as well, and bring this out towards everybody's attention. right. Masculine nouns can have feminine plural endings by adding the waf at the end. All right. All right. So these are going to be the masculine nouns on this side. The feminine nouns would be on the right hand side. All right. All right. So as far as with the first word here, we have above, which is a masculine noun. We're going to put M in parentheses to let you know that that's masculine. Now what I'm going to do is that as I bring this over here, I'm going to add the waf at the end of above. All right, so now instead of abba, now it'll be pronounced as upper waf in the Hebrew, which will be fathers. All right. All right, so going back up here at the top, I'm going to read this over again. It says masculine nouns can have feminine plural endings by adding the waf at the end. Now, when it comes down towards its translation, it's still going to be masculine, but with the feminine ending, it doesn't make that word feminine because you got to remember the nature of that particular word is fathers. All right. Now, now the next word here is going to be place in the Hebrew. And place in the Hebrew is going to be pronounced as makom, which is also another masculine noun. All right, so it changes it from place to places. All right. All right. So it changes it from place to places. I'm gonna unlock the wall so you can see exactly where it's at. Now, by being a bigger word, for a lot of people who may not know how to pronounce bigger words when you come across in the Hebrew, this is a good little aid to better help you out with that. So what you want to do is that you want to write out the pronunciation of all the letters out. All right. So we have ma, we have qua, we have ma, qua, we have wa, and then we have waf. All right. Now, these two letters here in the center are connected, and obviously, of course, the waf, which is the wa and the tha, are connected. So we pronounce that as ma, qua, one waf. All right. So I can make a mistake right there. There we go. All right. So for places in the Hebrew, it would be pronounced as manqua or mawaf. For place, it would just be pronounced as ma or waf in the Hebrew. Then again, that's a long word. When you add the waf at the end, now for voice in the Hebrew, which is also another masculine noun, that is actually pronounced as qua or la in the Hebrew. It's like a qawwal in the Hebrew, a mistake for voice, qawwal. If I want to add the waf at the end of qawwal, then it would be pronounced as qua wala waf. I'm gonna write this out. Qua wala waf, a full syllable word, which is also masculine, which is also meaning voices instead of voice. All right, which is also masculine as well. All these are all masculine nouns, and they are also made plural as well. And by using the ending, which is normally used for feminine words. All right, so these words here, when you add the waf at the end of a masculine noun, to where you have the waf at the end, it's not feminine. It's just gonna be masculine. It's just that you're just using a feminine plural ending to make it plural. You understand? So so you do have more than one type of way how you can make words plural rather than just adding the yum at the end. All right, so you have yum and you also have waf, which is normally an ending used for plural, for feminine plural endings. All right. All right, so now going back on over here at hand, I'm gonna read this on down. Going on down, it says feminine plural endings. Most feminine nouns have plurals that end in waf, which is exactly which I just went over. And here are some more examples right here. As you see with mare, which is a female horse, with the ha at the end. And then you can even use the ha at the end to where you can even add the waf in place of that. All right, and of course it will still be feminine. I'm going to read this here. A few feminine nouns have plurals that end in yum. All right, so there are feminine words that can be plural by adding yum at the end, and it will be plural as well. And what you see right here, woman, which is a singular noun. When you want to go ahead and make that plural, you have to yum at the end to where it changes it from woman. To where it changes it from a woman to woman, which the context is still actually feminine, even when you add the yum at the end. All right. All right. So I'm going to read right here. Point 3. Nouns for both masculine and feminine plural endings. A few nouns have two plural endings. One is yum and the other waf. All right. So you have the singular word here for generation, the war. And then you have there's two different plural endings with the yum and with the waf right here, what you see for generations. All right. Even for year, which is a feminine word, which is pronounced as shana. When you want to make shana plural in the Hebrew, you have two different variations on how to make it plural. You have the waf and then you have the yum. All right, so you can better choose either or, and you will even also see these in the scriptures as well when you come across these in the Bible. All right. So now this is something that's good to know as well. As far as with dual nouns, which is spelled D-U-A-L, dual nouns. The third number classification of Hebrew nouns is a dual. It is used to designate things that occur in pairs, especially organs of the body. All right, so that would be a pair of hands, pair of feet, pair of eyes, pair of ears. That's what it's saying. The dual endings is normally written as yum. For any time that you will read in the scripture, in the Bible, in the Tanakh, so where that word in the Hebrew is referring towards a group of pairs, and that word in the Hebrew will have the yum at the end, always. All right, so always remember that. All right, so that was it. Basically, just for us for lesson 7, as far as for necessarily having these words plural in the Hebrew. Within Lashawan Qadash, I had a way to make it both masculine and feminine. Um, um, it's like as far as from knowing and how to identify either if the word is masculine and feminine and how to make it plural, and by adding the waf at the end and even also the yum. All right. So we have our classes every day, Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. and our Sabbath service from 10 to 12 noon here at 938 Eastern Nash Street in Chicago, Illinois. Make sure you support the priests and prophets of the Lord and Isupk on the Command Gianna. And that's my time, Israel. Shalom.